Hello, guys. It's Shayrenee again, and welcome back to the special edition Saturdays of the Indie Spotlight. This is where I will be having a one-on-one conversation with a special guest. Tonight or this evening, we have Carlos O'Reilly. Excuse me. He's a band member of the Mini Qs. He works in several bands, and he is a pianist. And I think he plays among a lot of other instruments. I'm happy to bring him to the camera whenever he comes here. He will be in shortly. So the Indie Spotlight Special Edition, hi, hey there, Special Edition comes on, I think I'll be doing it every other Saturday. We're going to start the interview now with Luke. Hey, how are you
Hey,
doing?
how's it
Hi,
going?
it's going okay. How are you?
I'm well. I'm well. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Good. Yes, yes. I'm really excited because you're working on you're working on some new stuff. But before that, I'll ask you a few questions.
Okay, wonderful. Can you hear me okay?
Oh yes, I can hear you fine.
Great, great.
Um, how, what area are you from?
I am from the Boston area. I grew
Okay.
up in a town called Lexington. It's a Boston suburb about 20 minutes outside of Boston.
Okay.
Yeah, so and I spent most of my childhood there.
Okay. Okay. And um, like what inspired you to um like play instruments, or tell me a little bit about like you playing instruments and like what you
Mm. Well, my mother she grew up going to Catholic school. So
do.
in
Okay.
old school Catholic school, I think that it was kind of a rule that you had to learn how to play some piano. You just took piano lessons so she took piano lessons when she was young, and she was never uh, good enough at it that she made a career out of it. It was really just a hobby. But so I
Mhm.
grew up with a piano in the house, and
Mhm.
at a certain point, I think around four or so, my mother took
Mhm.
me in for parent-child lessons, and we took
Mhm.
lessons together, which was a lot of fun. And then
Yeah.
I kept with it. I really enjoyed it. I would steal my dad's records. My dad had a lot of soul records, a lot of Otis
Okay.
Redding, Sam Cooke, that
Wow.
sort of thing. My mother similarly had she had a lot of classical, and then she had some jazz records. And so I grew up listening to some not weird, but like kind of very eclectic music for a young person. I mean, I remember listening to Randy Newman records when I was in elementary school, listening to
Mhm.
Redding, and listening to just different types of music than really what my peers were listening to at the time. So that's kind of how I came to the piano. And when I was, I think, in fourth grade, I believe, somebody comes into your classroom and says, "Hey, who wants to play a saxophone or trumpet?" And I wanted to try trump. Excuse me, I almost said trumpet. I wanted to try saxophone. So I started playing alto saxophone at a pretty early age, and I played that really through college. And at college, that was the time when I switched from playing both piano and saxophone to really just playing piano. So,
You went to just talk a little bit more about that. You went to college and you graduated from Temple University, right?
yes, to you.
Oh.
I graduated in 2004. I went
Okay.
for jazz piano studies, performing. I think it's a performance aspect. And yeah, I had a very good experience at Temple. It actually, um, just bringing me to the city of Philadelphia, and then being able to
Mhm.
meet the people that I met during that time, and play at some of the clubs, and then get some of the education. I mean, really, the education that I was getting at that time was partly in school, but it was more like out in the streets, like in the jazz clubs and whatnot. So, but I did go to Temple. Yep.
And how many? That's awesome. I was a student there for about 2 semesters.
Okay.
Um, so I was a student there for about 2 semesters, and I did. I think I started out as music education, and then I moved to jazz vocal performance.
Oh,
Um,
cool. Very cool.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask, do you play any other instruments? I know you're a pianist, but do you play some other instruments?
I mean, at this point, I'm really just gonna call myself a pianist. I did play saxophone very seriously for many years, and I love the
Hmm.
saxophone. I love alto. I love tenor. I still own a tenor, but I don't play it very often. And that's basically it. I mean, I can kind of make some noise on other instruments, but I would never embarrass myself by saying that I can play other instruments.
Okay.
I own a bass. I own a drum set, but I would never call myself a drummer or a bassist. But I do like to kind of mess around and be able to be creative on more than just one instrument. And I do try to sing a little bit. I've been working on that over the years. So yeah, but mostly piano.
So, so like I noticed like when I started taking up jazz and stuff like that, it's really like really rich in like African American history. And my mom would tell me a story when I was younger that she actually lived next door to
Ooh.
Lee Morgan mom and his brother and stuff like that. And she would tell me about this. So then like I like kind of like wrote a paper about him and stuff like that when I was at Temple. So
Very cool.
I wanted to ask, what type of music do you do? What type of music do you do?
It's hard to say because if you come out, I mean, we haven't really been playing at all during COVID, but if
Hmm.
I mean, if you saw me before COVID, you might come
Yeah.
out one night in Philadelphia and see me playing in a jazz club or
Hmm.
R&B club, and then you might see me another time in New York playing like a neo soul club or a gig, or playing a jazz club, or then you might next week I might be out playing with. I mean, I was doing some touring with Seal before the
Yeah,
pandemic, so he's completely
that's really
on the
dope.
other end of the spectrum. He's not really
Yeah.
jazz. He,
No.
yeah, and I've played with some pop artists. I even did a short run with a country artist, and I did a couple tours with a hip hop artist. So um, it's a mixed bag. I mean, my music that I create has many elements. They usually all come back to jazz, but
Hmm.
I incorporate some Latin jazz, some hip hop, some R&B, some soul, some funk. A lot of the music that I grew up on. So it's a kind of a mosh
Yeah.
posh, but as I've been telling my students that I work with, jazz has a lot of different shades and flavors.
Hmm.
So I still consider much of it to be jazz oriented.
Okay. And then I want to ask, what type of so you were saying you were teaching. So what type of services like do you provide? Are you a tutor? Are you teaching full time or anything like that?
So the pandemic has been interesting. It's made me change the way I look at music and creating, and also just work as far as trying to earn a living. Before the pandemic, I probably 85% of what I did was live performance.
Hmm.
Some of it might have been recording studio, some of it might have been touring, some of it might have been my own groups,
Hmm.
and then maybe I was doing 15% was that small percentage was
Hmm.
teaching at the Kimmel Center, teaching through different programs. Uh, During the pandemic, the teaching at the Kimmel has really been keeping my teaching going. I've done
Hmm.
some of my own assemblies and created some of my own programs, and I also started teaching at UArts, which has been a really good experience.
Okay.
I only teach right now. I only have an ensemble because I just started, but I'm really enjoying working with college age students who are really into music. It's much different than working with just the younger children who some of them are into music, some of them aren't. So that's a little more of a general music thing. But I really love the program that I've been teaching because that Kimmel Center program is called Jazz for Freedom, and that mixes
Hmm.
jazz and jazz history with civil rights and how those two combine. And that's something that really is very interesting to me, and that I love spreading that kind of information and that love around to young people.
Yeah, I tried to I know like when you're singing and stuff, what like when you're performing, you don't think about all those things that like music school teaches you, but it like comes back like when you start to form music and make songs and stuff like that.
Right,
It's very helpful. It's very helpful.
right.
So that's um where can people find like your products? Do you sell any merchandise or like to find your music, your merchandise or anything like that?
Well, so my next album that is going to be available this week, I believe, I believe Monday. We'll see. The CDs, I already have CDs in hand. So,
Hmm.
but as far as online, that album will be available on all platforms, as far as Spotify and Apple Music, wherever you go and check out music, that album will be available. I'm going to be
Hmm.
setting up a an online store at lukecarlosoreilly.com, which is my website. I've taken that down just for a moment while it's being basically transitioned into representing this album. So hopefully in the next couple weeks that will be up. But any place that you can find music, that music will be available. And I also have
Okay.
a couple. I've actually several other CDs out under the Mini Qs, which is an Oregon Trail that I'm a
Yes.
part of, and then under my name, Luke Carlos O'Reilly, I have well, this will be my third record. So
Okay, okay.
yeah.
So they will be able to like just look up your name, Luke Carlos O'Reilly. That would be they can look that up on like Spotify, iTunes,
Hmm.
and Deezer, and like those places. I try to normally when I do interviews with everyone, I try to normally mention that, make sure I mention it because when people think about when people think about what I found that when people think about albums and stuff being out streaming, there's only about three, maybe four places where people what would come to mind for them to where they would get the music from.
Right.
and, and I notice if people don't find music and they don't find what they want fast, since we live in such a fast gratification world, they just stop. Like if one thing bumps them from finding it, they'll like literally stop.
Right, right.
Like,
And that's very true. And that's one of the reasons why, I mean, I've had my website up for several years, and I know
mm-hmm.
a certain number of people would check that pretty often. So that's one reason why I'm going to make as many of those links possible from LukeCarlosO'Reilly.com. But really, at any place that you look for music, you'll be able to find the album. The album is called I Too Sing America, A Black Man's Diary. And that again will be available this week. Hopefully, I'm hoping that the availability date will be March 15th because that will
Yeah.
actually mark one whole year of COVID, of the pandemic, for me at least.
Yeah. No, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of
As well.
when the world shut down for me. I think on March 15th of last year, uh, that's
Yeah,
when
pretty
everything
much
happened.
March of last year. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So it's cool that I
Um,
have something to offer after that year.
yeah, I heard that like things are supposed to be or trying to open up like around this summer.
Hmm.
I'm not really how sure that will be or if that'll happen because the live music scene took a very, very huge hit.
Oh, tremendous.
Huge hit.
There are things. I mean, I am slowly starting to get calls for bookings. I have a weekend at Rehoboth Beach coming up in April. I have a date at Smalls in New York coming up in April. I have an outdoor concert here in Philadelphia coming up in April. So I do think that the attempts are being made to start creating those venues, creating the possibility for live music. I know that South Jazz Club just reopened, and
Okay.
they're going to be doing live music. So I think a lot of restaurants and music venues are doing what they can. Of course, with
Mhm.
the better weather, we'll be able to have outdoor concerts.
Sure, sure.
So
Yeah, yeah. I heard like a lot of people are supposed to be, or they're trying to get a lot of vaccinations out and trying to get everything together by July. Like, I don't know if they mean like fully together. But
yeah,
while we're
I've
on
heard
that,
that as well,
sure.
actually. So
You heard that? Okay.
yeah, yeah.
While we're on that topic, I wanted to ask, due to COVID-19 shutdowns, where do you see like the future of live music?
Mm. I think that live music, the space for live music may be regulated a little more,
Hmm.
and I think that's
Hmm.
okay. I think I'm I'm not quite a germaphobe, but I'm at the point where in my life where it's like sometimes I find myself in a very normal situation that doesn't feel very comfortable as far as people being cramped, safety precautions. People, I mean, people are just rude. They'll cough and not cover their hand, and I've seen men come out of the bathroom and not wash their hands. It's that type of thing. So
Yeah.
I'm
Oh, that's a
hoping,
big concern.
yeah, I hope that this is going to be a readjustment for us as a society to really check
Yeah.
ourselves. I think that music will come back. I think there will be a lot more. Uh, uh, I'm not sure if live streaming will be the thing or what, or
Hmm.
did concerts that are available. Maybe if somebody does a live concert after the fact, there may be the video, a high quality video that is available for a certain period of time, which we really haven't been seeing that for, unless if it's a festival.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of clubs, in attempts to keep music going, have invested have invested time and
Hmm.
money in creating a good atmosphere for live video, for good audio that can be streamed. So I think we'll see a lot more clubs and venues streaming music and creating
Hmm.
online content, which I think is not a bad thing. I think it's also a direction that we're moving anyways, just because
Hmm.
we're in a digital age. So it's
Hmm.
not necessarily a terrible thing. Hopefully the live aspect is not hurt because jazz is meant to be played live and experienced live. It's really a
Yeah.
live music. Where some other music, I'm not going to name different types of music, so I would never want to have somebody think that I think less of that type of music. But there's some types of music that you can enjoy, and it doesn't have to be a live performance really
Hmm.
for it to kind of for you to get the full value of it. But as far as jazz, I think jazz is very much a live audience-based music.
Okay. Thanks on.
Yeah.
Um. So I know you were telling me about some of your upcoming performances. I don't know if you can or should talk about. I want to ask about the performance that was in Philadelphia.
hmm Which one now?
Is
The
it
the
set
one
in stone? You said like you had a couple. I know you said you
oh
had one in New York, one in Rehoboth Beach. I don't know if it's set in stone yet, so I didn't know if you wanted to tell everyone like where that next one is at. I don't know if it's like a possibility or not. So I don't know if you
yes, it
want.
is, of course. Do you lose me? Yeah, you lost me, right?
I'm sorry. Okay, you're back.
Did you lost me, didn't you? I,
Yeah,
I,
for a
I
minute.
don't do Instagram live very often, so I don't know the I'm so used to Zoom. With Zoom, you can
Oh,
actually
okay.
move out of it and do stuff. Instagram
Mm,
Live is not the same. So uh, I do have a couple dates. Basically, I'm just going to say this. If anybody's interested in finding out about my schedule, for now, the best place to find me is on Instagram at
okay.
Luke Carlos O'Reilly and on Facebook at Luke Carlos O'Reilly, um, because I do a lot of updating there, and then I will have the website soon because the dates are kind of still coming in and still being
Sure.
solidified. Just did a date 2 weeks ago featuring trumpeter Sean Jones at Chris's Jazz Cafe. So that was kind of the precursor to the album release. And once the album is out, again, it's very limited what we can do, where we can perform. But come spring, I do intend on playing a lot more gigs based around the album.
Okay. Um. So make sure that like if anyone wants any updates about shows, they check Facebook and Instagram under
hmm
Carlos O'Reilly. Um,
Yeah.
I can just imagine what the music scene will be looking like probably when we're well into like maybe like next summer. I think everybody's going to be listening to everything. I don't even think there's be no such thing as bad music by then.
I think, I mean, a lot of people have said this, and maybe part of it is wishful thinking, but I think it's also just positive thinking that there's going to be a lot of music this summer. because
Uh-huh.
people have been cooped up through this winter. People have been without live music for the most part. I
Hmm.
mean,
Yeah.
I know people who go out regularly, go out two, three times a month to hear live music, and they haven't been out in a year. So once things are more open, they're going to be dying to go out, and there are plenty of people who have not lost income. They have money to spend on entertainment.
Sure. Yes, they do.
So I'm hoping, and I'm sure a lot of artists are hoping that they're willing to come out and start putting that energy and time back into what is available. So I think there's a
Sure.
possibility that this summer could be crazy. I already have a tentative schedule that's pretty good because there
Wow.
were a lot of things that were canceled from last year.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Okay. Got you.
and once these festivals are secure, that's going to be a big deal because so many artists, especially jazz artists, depend upon jazz festivals. Capital
Hmm.
Jazz Festival. There's so many festivals obviously out there. Red Sea Jazz Festival. That's overseas, of course. There's so many festivals that we're used to playing, and especially with
Hmm.
an album like this, I would be attempting to do a bunch of those festivals. But I think most of them right now are not committed to happening until they know that it's safe, especially if you're talking about overseas. Right now, overseas they don't want us. They don't they don't want Americans because we have not been treating the pandemic and coronavirus as seriously as we should have, in my opinion. And it's caused us to be outliers. Really, there are countries that are like we don't want you coming to visit. So we have a little time. We have a little time until we're welcome back into all spaces worldwide. But
Maybe, yeah,
working
maybe.
our way there.
Right. I maybe like that'll be maybe like the complete opening up will be next summer, but this summer seems like a lot of things will be opening up, and it seems like everything will be going, well, trying to go move forward.
Very much hope so. Yeah, very much hope so.
Um, I wanted to ask you, what is the best advice you would give an upcoming artist or instrumentalist? Instrumentalist.
Mm. It's different than it normally would be. Normally, I'd say get out and hear some music. Of course, as we just said, that's a little more difficult than we'd like it to be. But stay involved as much as you can be. Um, as far as checking out live streams, checking out, there's so much material now on YouTube, on for live streams. There are concerts that are happening still. Um, really, just staying. If you're a young musician and you're an aspiring artist, you need to stay inspired. You and the inspiration won't just come and knock on your door. You need to stay
Right.
connected to what's
Yeah.
happening, listening to. I mean, I'm constantly talking with friends about who are you listening to now? Who are the new
Mhm.
artists? And even if old artists, old
Yeah.
records that I haven't heard. I'm 38, which is I'm happy about that age, but I mean, I still have a lot of music to listen to. There's a lot of music out there, and
Yes.
one of my favorite ways of accessing it is actually through records, through LPs.
Okay.
I'm an LP collector. I also have a decent CD collection, which is makes me sound old because that's kind of an old school thing. But point being, there are many ways to access music. Stay connected with your instrument. Even during this time where we're not really able to put it on display the way that we'd like, um, and this goes for me and for all musicians, you have to stay connected to your instrument and keep that relationship going because it is a relationship. You have to nurture it and give it love. Because if I don't give the piano my love for a couple days, I'm not going to come back and have it be the same. It's a different relationship. You got to nurture that relationship. So staying
Yeah.
connected to your instrument and staying connected to the music, especially the music that you are hoping to make. If you want to be a jazz musician, you need to be listening to a lot of jazz music. And I've met some young people who are like, I love jazz. I want to be a jazz artist. and I'll mention a Lee Morgan or a Horace Silver, or I'll mention somebody, and they have no idea who it is, and
That
that's a problem.
that that's pretty funny. It kind of reminds me of when I was somewhere and they were talking about a lot of different jazz musicians, and I know about like a lot of I was studying to be like, a jazz well, a female jazz singer. And like I noticed that a lot of people did not know about like other female jazz singers, and I could like
Hmm.
look at them and know who they were by picture. And someone
Right.
made a mistake, and I was just like I was wondering, I was like, is this something y'all really really want to do? Because
Right.
it was really basic. It seemed basic to me. I mean, it didn't have to be basic, but jazz is a really hard is a I kind of feel like it's like a labor of love. It's very rewarding, and you know how to do a lot of things after it, but you really do have to keep at it, as you
You
said.
have to keep at it. It's a very deep music. There's a lot of material, um,
Mhm.
and especially for a vocalist, there are vocalists who tend to listen to a couple vocalists they really like. If I hear somebody say, "Oh, I love Gretchen Parlato," I
Mhm.
love Esperanza Spalding, and those are two
Mhm.
amazing artists. But if I bring up Abby Lincoln and you don't know what I'm talking about, or Carmen McRae and you've never
Oh
heard of
yeah, yeah.
her, then that's there's something missing there. You need to do your homework. It doesn't
Yeah.
start with those artists that I named. And again, I named those artists because those are two amazing artists of today. But if you talk to either of those artists, they obviously will tell you, hey, you got to listen to this from 50 years ago. You got to listen to this. You got to do your homework.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
important. Yeah.
Sure. Um and so how long have you been, so I'm going to ask like how long have you been in your organ trio?
Oh, the,
So
the
that's the
organ
mini
trio.
cube. How
Okay.
long have you been on?
So the Minicus, we actually just released an album this past December. So that was
Mhm.
our third album. That's a project that I've been doing with my musical partner, Ben O'Neill, who's an amazing guitarist. Ben has played with the likes of John Legend, Jill Scott, Ty Tribbett. But he's also a jazz guitarist. He actually also teaches at UArts as well. So we're on the faculty together there at UArts. So we've been doing that for about 16 years, and that has
Oh
always
wow.
been a bit of a uh, of kind of a side piece for us in the way that if he's not touring and I'm not touring, we'll put together some shows. We just recently started doing more recordings because especially in the last year, we've been home more.
Yeah.
So we've been working on more of that music. It's really we play music that we love. We love to play together. That's another very eclectic group because we started off playing. There were two sessions we played. We played a Marmont session, which is a restaurant in Old City. We did that for 3 years, every Monday night, and then we moved that Monday night to Time. I was running a session at Time restaurant for many years, and we did a similar type of thing there. We used to play gigs that were 4 hours long, where we would like maybe play for 2.5 hours straight.
Oh
we're
wow.
we're obviously younger, and I'm sure
Mhm.
that the free drinks helped keep the music flowing at the time. but um, but we would go from the Beatles to Stevie Wonder to Kanye West, to The Cure, and,
Mhm.
and back around again. So that's always been a really fun adventure into music for us. Um, if we hear something that we think would be good for the trio, we'll get together and we'll add it to the list. And we actually have a couple shows coming up, and that's been a really fun thing for me because it's gotten me into organ, which is a completely different instrument, really, than piano. And I just bought, strangely enough, I just bought a new organ right before COVID. So I haven't even been able to bring that out yet, and I am about to have a custom Leslie. So I'm excited to get back out there and be playing organ shows with the Minicus.
That. It sounds very, very interesting and very fun. I was able to actually meet Ben when I had to shadow at had to shadow or audition at U of A.
Okay.
Um, Ben's your guitarist, you're the organist, right? In
Mm-hmm.
mini cues, and then who is your drummer?
So for the last 5 years or so, we've been using Anwar Malcolm Marshall, who is a Philly based. Well, he was. He actually just moved to New York recently, but he's Philly born. Amazing drummer, amazing young brother. I've done Anwar has been on all three of my CDs, and then
Okay.
he's been on uh, two of the Mini Q CDs.
Oh,
So
okay.
so he and I have played. I think we joke about it sometimes. I mean, we've played well over 1,000 shows together,
Oh, wow.
and yeah, because it's been about 10 years, and we are working together constantly. Even though he's up in New York now doing really big things with some great artists like Jasmine Horn.
Mm.
He was playing with Pat Metheny for a little bit, Dave Douglas. So he's doing a lot of great things in his career. But so that's another reason why the Mini Q's project has always been kind of and we don't throw that project to scraps of our time and our energy when we have time for it, and we
Mhm.
really dedicate something to it because we love the music, we love the organ trio vibe, we love playing together. It's more a matter of when we can get it in, we do what we
Yeah.
can. We set up a show or set up a recording session. We even did a recording session during COVID. It was a very safe situation, of course, and with social distancing. But we have another record in the making at the moment. So just trying to put out some music and create some music during this time. I used to play with a trombonist named Curtis Fuller, and
Hmm.
Curtis Fuller, he was a part of John Coltrane's quintet at one point, and he's still alive.
Oh,
Unfortunately,
wow.
he's in a home at the moment. He was a sweetheart to play with and a great musician. He always told me that really the legacy, the musical legacy that you leave, is left in recordings and the songs that you write, and then also giving back, like with the young people that you teach and give your music and share your gift with. So that was what he always reminded me, that it's important to share your gift and pay it forward, but then also record as much as possible. So that's kind of what we've been trying to do, trying to come up with music during this time.
Oh, well, I mean, sounds amazing. So you making me about to want to come out.
Hey,
I have not been out and I haven't been due to a lot of different things happening, especially because of COVID, I haven't been able to like attend a lot of live performances and go
right,
see a lot of live performances.
of course.
But it sounds like the stuff that you have upcoming is good. So um your your the project that you're putting out now, you said it's called
It's called I Too Sing America,
I Too Sing America,
A Black
the
Man's
black
Diary.
a black man's diary.
And
Okay,
that's
what?
take that title. Sorry, that title is taken from Langston Hughes' poem.
Okay.
There's a poem called I Too, that he
Mhm.
wrote over 50 years ago, of course, and it's about having a seat basically at the table where the white folks eat and being able to be seen as beautiful. So I thought that
Mhm.
was a very pertinent. Uh, the album, in working during the process, it was called Black Lives Matter, but I wanted to have a title that was not as to the point. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, I too sing America.
Cool. So what inspired you to do it? I know that we're at a really we've always been what is it called? We have been racially separated for a long time, even though
Hmm.
sometimes when we're in certain spaces we look as if we're integrated. And the funny thing about that is that we are what shall I say? We are segregated, and the segregation bleeds into like music and spaces. I remember when I was looking at in jazz history about how black and white players couldn't play together, somebody else was coming in the back door, the other person was coming in the front door, and there wasn't like a it wasn't a mutual respect. And I just find that like so funny because like when I looked at jazz, it was happy and it was
Hmm.
going through those times. It was going through really racial times. So what
Right.
like inspired you to make this now, and or when did you record it or make it, and what inspired you to make it?
So, uh, I guess the concept of it for me started in 2008, I believe it was.
Oh,
I was out with a friend, and basically, in short, something happened where the police came, and a police officer wound up beating me up with a billy club, and yes, it was a traumatic incident for me, and it was a black police officer, and
wow.
yep, and I have a song. I'm not going to say that the song is dedicated to him because I'm not going to give him that much energy. But
Right.
the song is more dedicated to the concept. It's the song is called Brother Man in Blue,
Brother
and
Man Love.
I'm very interested, and I have been since then, in the black man's perspective as far as black officers' perspective on Black Lives Matter and police
Hmm.
brutality. I
Yeah.
think that's an important conversation that is
Hmm.
not had very often because uh, the police brutality issue has been too often made into a white versus black, which it
Hmm.
is not necessarily, not at all, really. It's a systematic, it has to do with systematic racism. It has to do with basically operating within a system and how that system views black and brown people, especially young people, especially um, if I mean, there are different kind of alleys to go down there. But if you're a larger black man, Mike
Hmm.
Brown
Hmm.
was obviously quite intimidating to the
Yeah.
officer, as
Hmm.
was Eric Garner, who was a
Hmm.
very large man, and resulted in a situation where they said that they were basically defending themselves in a way because, well, I had to choke him because he's a 6'4", 300-pound black man. I didn't know what else to do. I
Right.
had to shoot him. Um,
Right.
and those type of issues. I mean, so that incident, sorry, I digress a little bit. That incident spawned kind of a thought process in my head. And then fast forward to about 4 years ago, I had finished my last album. I had kind of rode that wave for a while, and I was wondering what is going to be my next project. And I really wanted to create something because during that time there was a lot of Black Lives Matter issues, a lot of killing, a lot of things on the news. I really wanted to create something that had more substance than just creating a song that had a melody that people liked and then soloing over it and having pretty chords or something. Um, that's still a part of it, very much so. But I wanted to put out something that meant a little more. So that led to me starting. I wrote the song Black Lives Matter probably about 3 years ago, and that led to a residency at the Kimmel Center. I won basically a 1 year residency where I was given grant money in order to come up with a new master, basically a new group of pieces, a new suite really of music based on something of
Hmm.
my choosing, and I chose Black Lives Matter. So
Hmm.
wrote a lot of the songs that you'll hear on the album then, and I actually did a lot of that work with a dancer named Sanchelle Brown, who I do
Hmm.
hope to incorporate because it's been too bad that she hasn't been incorporated in the album. The album is just audio,
Hmm.
but I do hope to keep on working with her on that, and it's led to really this album being created. So it's taken a little while, but it's also been in the making. It's been in the making since that incident, really, and I'm sure before then. I mean, I've been interested in black white relations for most of my life. I was a big fan of Malcolm X when I was growing up, and
Hmm.
I've always been interested in the Black Panthers
Hmm.
and reading books about them. So,
I actually just got finished looking at Judas and the Black Messiah, and if you
mhm.
didn't look at it, that was really. Did you already seen it?
Oh yeah, definitely,
Oh yeah,
definitely,
it was really good, and it
really
was
good.
funny. It's funny that it is a lot of bad discrimination with black men, but I noticed like as a black woman, it's a lot of discrimination. Like you said, like the police might look at a large black man
Hmm.
a certain way, and then like the music industry looks at a large black woman in a different way. So
Very
like
true. Very
you
true.
know,
Very
which I
true.
am. But like I noticed that the way some of the things that I went through as being a singer or a musician, I know that I experienced it because of my race or because of my appearance and stuff like that. So I'm glad that you're making a project like this and you're talking about stuff like this because we should never go back to what we were. We should just be evolving because I see things
That's
slowly
absolutely
trying
true.
to go back. And I'm like, no, don't go back. Get better.
When people talk about, oh, I can't wait until we get back, or I can't wait until things are back to normal,
Hmm.
I, if given the space and time, will kind of interject and say, well, nothing's going to go back to the way it was, and there are reasons why we shouldn't want them to go back to the way that it was. There are many improvements that we can make, both in the entertainment community and musical community. Um, there are just a lot of changes that can be made, and then as far as just as Americans living here and living together and existing with one
Hmm.
another, there are a lot of things that were happening a year ago that we really should be working our hardest to move away from.
Hmm.
Luckily, we're at a point where we have a new regime leading the country, and I really
Hmm.
hope that. And whether people are Trump supporters or not, I don't really
Hmm.
get into too much. Um, uh, but I do think that that was a time when black and white was pushed as far as apart as possible, uh,
Hmm.
and there a lot of the issues that we're talking about were kind of highlighted because of our presidents, or I didn't really call him
Yeah.
our president, I called him the resident, uh,
That's a good
um,
name.
resident. But he promoted a lot of hatred and a lot of
Hmm.
uh, basically just was against unity. And unity
Hmm.
is really what we're shooting for. One picture that I show my students very often is a picture of um, during the civil rights movement, and it's nobody that we know. It's just random people marching together, and I believe they're singing a song, and you see a black man with his arms chained and walk not chained, but like in a chain line,
Hmm.
holding arms with a white man, and on the other end is another black man. And I love that picture because it shows, first of all, that the chain that is being created is for strength in numbers. And then
Hmm.
that chain that is being created can't be just created by black and brown folks. It has to be everyone. It has to be children. It has to be adults, older folks. It has to be white, black, different beliefs and religions. I love my church because part of it is because we have a relationship with other religious leaders. They're not Christian. We have relationships with a rabbi, and
Hmm.
other leaders. So I mean, really, it's about gaining that unity, that strength, by joining together. And I mean, it's important for the music community too. We need to join together to get out of situations where we're not making enough money, where we're being abused, or when
Yeah.
black women aren't getting the same opportunities, maybe as a thin white vocalist.
Hmm.
That type of those type of situations. So I agree with
Yeah.
you that going back is not. We never want to go back.
We shouldn't. So I'm. It's kind of messed up that like the former person or our former president or president that we had that we had, it was like it separated everyone and it messed up a lot of things. But then again, when it came out, everything had to be addressed.
Right, right.
So we need to go into we're transitioning and we're putting. I'm just happy that things are put on the table. I'm not happy for what happened, but it was like people got messed up, people died, people got discriminated against, people got hurt because of the color of their skin, whether they were black or white. But it kind of like put us at it gave us accountability, shall I say that?
Absolutely. I am very thankful to Resident Donald Trump for making the racists and the bigots and the misogynists feel comfortable enough to come out of
Right.
the closet because
Yeah, he did.
um,
He emboldened them.
really, because one of the worst things we could have said a year ago was, and I've heard this from some people, racism really, it really rarely exists anymore, and it's really great that we're in a new place. That's all BS.
Yeah.
It and especially with having that president, there were times when there was plenty happening as far as the Black Lives Matter movement that we weren't hearing about because our president was just being stupid and taking
Yeah.
away the limelight.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but these issues, just because we don't turn on the TV and see a black man being shot, doesn't mean that it's not still happening. Um,
Right.
and I think the conversation is important. And I hope that this album really starts some conversations. I hope some people check out this album and at some point they can talk together about it and talk about some of the song titles. The song titles are very explicit.
Oh, okay.
One title is called "Can't Breathe."
Mm-hmm.
Another one I mentioned, "Brother Man in Blue." Another song is called "America," spelled with three Ks.
Mm-hmm.
So it's meant to be thought-provoking material. I hope that it's my hope for it is uh, that it's amusing and entertaining to the ear, but also just really creates some kind of conversation or sparks some kind of conversation for people, or at least some thought process that maybe they didn't
Yeah.
have before, and not just for white people, for black people too,
Yeah.
for people of all colors. I really want. It was tough because when my producer said, "So who is this album for?" I wanted to say everyone. And that's kind of one of those answers. Well, all right, we need to figure out who we're gearing this towards. In a way, it really is for everyone because I think everybody needs to talk about this and talk about these issues.
I think that's, and I think that what a good way to make everybody talk about the issues and be accountable is through music, something that
Hmm.
reaches everyone, something that everyone listens to. Like, so everybody might not want to listen to, like, read a history thing, but they might want to listen to the music. So
Right.
I'm glad that you made a project like this. And often, a lot I notice when I look at people that are musicians or in higher places, I don't see them talk about the issues that the people normally want them to talk about. I know
Mm,
at all times they can't, but they feel like, well, if I talk about this, then this crowd isn't going to like me or it's not going to sell. And it's
right.
like, but you need to talk about it. But you
Yeah.
should talk about it. You
There's
should talk about
there's a way, and it's a difficult line that we are learning to walk.
it. Hmm.
But um, if you want to have some type of voice in this industry, you have to be willing to talk about some things that you may lose some fans.
Yeah.
And as I'd consider myself an up and coming artist still because I'm not at the point where I'm doing world tours with my groups. I'm not on the level of Herbie Hancock. So that's what
Hmm.
I'm working towards. But I've also been around for a little bit, and
Hmm.
uh, I feel like I've paid some dues as far as with some of the artists that I've worked with and some of the music that I've put out. I'm at the point where I'm ready to start putting out some content that may turn some people off. There may
Okay.
be a white person that reads the title track, that one of the tracks, America with three Ks, and they say
Uh-huh.
KKK. I don't want nothing to do with that. I'm not listening to this crap. Um,
Uh,
and unfortunately, that's a reality. You can't please everybody, and anybody who tries to please
no.
everybody is going to be losing out and be very you're gonna be very stressed. You're gonna be very stressed all of your career if you're always trying to
Yeah.
please everybody. So,
Yeah. You definitely you definitely will be. Um. All right, but you are multiracial, right?
yes. So my race and ethnicity has been kind of an interesting journey for me because I learned some more information recently. But I'm
Mm.
basically half from West Africa,
Mm.
so half black, and then I'm going to say about 25% Native American Indian, and then 20% Spanish and Portuguese. So there's a pretty big mix there. I know I'm missing 5%, but that's kind of other and whatnot. Um,
Okay.
but it's funny because I'm actually less Hispanic than I thought because I was born in Colombia, in Cali, Colombia, and
Mm.
I always kind of felt like, well, I guess I'm like half black, half Hispanic. And it's interesting to find out about some of the regions in Africa that my people are from. And
Mm.
I never knew that had any Portuguese, and I wasn't aware of the Native American Indian. But some research and 23andMe and whatnot has helped me find out more information. I actually found my birth mother. She has actually passed away, but she is very
Oh, I'm
interesting to find
sorry.
out. Yeah, that's fun. I've never really known her. And my adoptive parents are that's who I call my parents. But in doing some research, found her, and it was interesting to find out a little bit about her and who she is. So I
Mm.
don't know, I don't have that knowledge of my background that people gain from
Mm.
listening to grandparents and listening to their parents' stories. A little
Sure.
different in my case, but Afro Latino is a term that I use.
Hmm.
Black and Hispanic is another term I use. So I do identify with both cultures, but I somehow lean more towards my black roots. Simply, I think because of the music that I've been drawn to my whole life. And I think that's one of the big reasons why I'm actually doing a show in May called Revivals of Blackness with a couple of
Oh.
artists, and that's through World Cafe Live, and that is actually exploring um, um, our blackness as individuals, how we view blackness. So a lot of the material, a lot of the work that I'm doing right now is revolving around basically what's important to me at this moment, which is, as I mentioned, unity, but also understanding blackness and understanding the music.
But that's a good explanation of like your heritage, why you made the album, what inspired you to make the album. And I noticed that as being a black person in America, we're trying to do dual things. In other words, we have to heal because of what happened to us, and then we have
Hmm.
to function in modern society. And I feel sometimes that I get brain fog from that because it's like, are you supposed to heal? Or are you supposed to be upset? Are you supposed to do this or do that? And it's like you have to do all of those things at the same time when if you're black or part black in America, or being African American, or even just being um anything other than white per se. And
Right.
that's a really interesting factor where it leaves you in a certain type of mental state, and you have to get like that madness or the upsetness out in some type of way. And what better way would that be to do but through music
Through music.
and
Through music.
education? That's
It's
also
very,
another
yeah.
way to do
I think it's really important. I mean, music is a way for us to emote, and jazz is an amazing art form to emote, to get your feelings out. And another thing that I teach my students, I talk about the history of black artists in jazz who have made their stories, their life stories, and their life experiences and their feelings about what's going on in the world, made those thoughts and feelings known through songs like I talk about Nina Simone, who didn't write but made the song popular. I wish I knew how it would feel to be free, how it felt to be free. Excuse me, song by Dr. Billy Taylor. But the words to that song are very explicit. And that song was written in the '60s, I believe. And there's so many other pieces of music that, especially in jazz, that reflect the black struggle, black experience,
it.
black conquerings, things that we have to overcome. So I'm trying to be a part of that.
Sure. I remember like I used to go to a lot of like jazz open mics
Mm,
when I was in Temple University to try to get to know everyone and try to get a feel for like what I wanted to do and how I want to sound. And I just wanted to sing Billie Holiday's Strange Fruit, and
hmm
I never would sing it because I didn't know how everyone would feel about it
hmm
if I did, or if it would offend and all those other type of things. So that is a good thing that um That is a good thing that you're able to talk about that through your album. And you said that. Oh, so I want to ask you again, like where everybody can find your music at, so I can direct them,
Of
or we
course,
can direct
of
them to
course.
your music and stuff.
I was going to say, I forget whose quote it is, but great art should make those who are uncomfortable feel comfortable, and those who are comfortable feel uncomfortable.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay.
and I think that's a great quote. So those
Wow.
that have been hurt, that have been ignored, it should give them some comfort. And then those
Hmm.
who are comfortable in their lives, comfortable in society the way it is, they should ultimately feel uncomfortable and realize, wait, things aren't as perfect as I want them to be, or I think they are. So, um, as far as the album, sorry, uh,
No.
um, so it will be out this week on all platforms. I Too Sing America, A Black Man's Diary. So that's Apple Music, Spotify, any place that you go and listen to your music. And I will also be posting a lot of information on my Instagram. If anybody wants to join, follow my Instagram, Facebook as well. And yeah, I will be setting up an online shop within the next couple weeks on my LukeCarlosO'Reilly.com website.
That's awesome. So before I wrap up the interview, I just want to say like now, like I'm like hopefully like we'll work together
Oh
in
yeah,
the future.
that'd be great.
And I wanted to, so I didn't know if you had any few last words or anything you wanted to say before I wrap up the interview.
No, please. I mean, I'll just say that I appreciate you reaching out to me.
Mm,
I mean, I enjoyed interviewing with you. You're quite quite lovely and quite easy to talk to.
yeah.
So that is good. I've had some very awkward interviews.
Oh,
Um, yeah, and sometimes people haven't done any type of homework and they wind up asking very strange questions. So I appreciate your that you did a little homework. I appreciate that, and that I appreciate you having me. Thank you very much.
okay. So I appreciate you for coming on, and hopefully we'll talk soon, and that I can post
Mhm.
some of your stuff and the stuff that you have coming out.
Wonderful.
And I wanted to tell you thank you and thank everybody for watching as well. And good
Yeah,
night and have a great weekend, everyone.
yeah. Thank you all. Shout out to everybody who tuned in.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.